It's a ToddCast Time Machine.
Time for the ToddCast Time Machine. And look, we're going to go back and leaning in to November 11th, right? The 11th hour, the 11th day, 11th month. Every November, this was I want to talk about the real end of World War I. And those of you that know me very well know what pet peeve I am about to go off on, but this is the perfect time. This is essentially a plea to teach World War I more accurately than how all of us Americans get taught World War I in school. So here we go. Every November, we pause for this familiar ritual. The 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The guns fell silent. The Great War was over. Or so the story goes. We call it Armistice Day. We renamed it Veterans Day. But here's the thing. That famous moment on the Western Front wasn't the true end of the war. It was the biggest headline, but it wasn't the closing chapter. Because 12 days before Germany's surrender aboard a British warship anchored in the Aegean Sea, another armistice was signed, the Armistice of Mudros. And that's the one that really changed the world. And that's the one that still leaves World War I unresolved today. It marked the surrender of the Ottoman Empire. It was the empire that had ruled the Middle East for 6 centuries, 600 years of ruling. Governed Jerusalem, Damascus, Baghdad, Mecca, and Istanbul. And it collapsed almost overnight. When we commemorate November 11th, we're not just honoring the end of a war. We're marking the moment when an entire world order vanished and left a geopolitical mess that we still haven't cleaned up. So let's talk about that forgotten surrender, the one before the one we talk about and made a national holiday. On October 30th, 1918, Ottoman officials met British Admiral Somerset Calthorpe aboard the HMS Agamemnon in the harbor of the Greek island of Lemnos. They signed away an empire. The terms were extraordinarily harsh. Allied forces could occupy forts, control the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles, and move troops anywhere they deemed necessary. Within days, British and French soldiers were marching into Istanbul. Arab lands that had been Ottoman provinces were carved up on European maps. By November 11th, the day the world remembers, the Ottoman state already existed in name only. It was less a peace than a liquidation sale. The Sykes-Picot lines drawn a few years earlier, those straight colonial borders that paid no attention to tribes, sects, or languages, suddenly became real. France got Syria and Lebanon. Britain took Iraq, Transjordan, and Palestine. The seeds of modern conflict were being planted even as the victory parades began in Paris. So welcome to the unfinished war. We like to think World War I ended. Folks, it never did. It metastasized. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire created a power vacuum that has never truly been filled. I argue that to this day, World War I is an unresolved conflict. No less unresolved than the Korean War. Every crisis you can name in the modern Middle East, from Israel and Palestine to the Sunni-Shia divide in Iraq, from the Syrian civil war to Turkey's uneasy relationship with its Kurdish population, all of it traces back to those few months between October 1918 and the early 1920s. Europe may have stopped fighting, but the Middle East never got its peace conference. It got foreign administrators, new flags, and a ton of broken promises. The British had pledged independence to Arab leaders who fought alongside Lawrence of Arabia. They had also promised a Jewish homeland in Palestine through the Balfour Declaration. Well, guess what? Those two commitments could not coexist. And we're still living with this contradiction today. The French, for their part, wanted to secure influence from the Mediterranean to the Euphrates. And the Turks, stripped of an empire, turned inward, rallying behind a young general named Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, who would fight to reclaim sovereignty and reinvent Turkey as a secular republic by 1923. It's fascinating to go to be in Ankara. I've been there a couple of times for work back in the day, and how important Ataturk is. He's sort of treated like the George Washington now of Turkey there. But it is a strange. It's almost as if Turkey became this sort of modern country then, but it's weird to have so little about the Ottoman Empire itself when you're there. But the caliphate, the symbolic headship of the Muslim world, was gone, and the vacuum of spiritual authority has haunted the Islamic world ever since as well. Here in the United States, we teach World War I mostly as a prequel. The war that made the next war possible, right? Almost, I promise you, all of you, go back and think about how you were taught World War I. And I promise you, you were likely taught it like this. We talk about German reparations, the Treaty of Versailles, the rise of Hitler, all through the prism of Europe. We barely mention the Ottoman Empire's collapse, even though it's arguably the most consequential outcome of the entire conflict. We treat the Great War as if it ended in the mud in France, not in the deserts of Arabia or the streets of Istanbul. Because guess what? It's not a clean history. If you have to go in there, because it's a complicated history to talk about. There's no clean narrative. It's hard to find good guy, bad guy, back and forths here, black hat, white hat type of stuff. It's simply competing betrayals and a century of fallout. There's a reason results matter more than promises. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan has become America's largest injury law firm. For the last 35 years, they've recovered $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. It includes cases where insurance companies offered next to nothing, short of shortchanging, seeing if they could get away with it. And Morgan & Morgan fought back, and they won millions. In Pennsylvania, one client was awarded $26 million. It was a staggering 40 times the amount that the insurance company originally offered. That offer, $650,000, whatever it took to sort of get away without paying. So with more than 1,000 lawyers across the country, Morgan & Morgan knows how to deliver for everyday people. So if you're injured, you're looking for a lawyer, check out forthepeople.com/Toddcast or dial pound law, pound 529 on your cell phone. And remember, all law firms are not the same. So give Morgan & Morgan a look. Their fee is free unless they win. But if we're serious about understanding why the modern Middle East looks the way it does, why its borders don't fit its peoples, why faith and nationalism remain so intertwined, why outside powers keep being pulled back in, we have to start with the armistice of Mudros, not the one at Compiègne. 100 plus years later, the ghosts of 1918 are still arguing. Turkey is once again projecting power into its old Ottoman neighborhoods, northern Syria, the Caucasus, and the Balkans. What President Erdogan openly calls a neo-Ottoman vision. Arab nationalism born in the ashes of the empire, that's faded into sectarianism. And Israel and Palestine remain the unfinished ledger of those post-war promises. The irony of Armistice Day is that it celebrates the idea of finality, the notion that a world war could end cleanly with signatures and silence. We're so proud of ourselves about it. But the Middle East proves the opposite, that some wars don't end. They just simply change shape. The Ottoman Empire fell, but the conflicts it managed among ethnicities, religions, and empires survived that fall. So this week, as we mark Armistice Day, listen for the echo under that bugle call. That's not just the sound of the guns going silent. It is the sound of an empire collapsing, of maps being redrawn, of the modern Middle East being born in chaos. When we teach history in this country, we spend too much time teaching about the Western Front. Maybe it's time we also teach the Eastern aftermath, because the world that ended in 1918 is the same one we're still trying to manage today. And by the way, I believe that the shocking amount of young people that don't understand the history of the Middle East and think it all began with a partition in 1948 by the new United Nations, this is among the reason they're so ignorant of that era, because of how poorly we collectively taught our own society about World War I. So as a Jewish American, I do get really upset and worked up, and I've been a huge advocate and really believe we've got to improve how we teach World War I larger in middle school, in high school, not just waiting for college to learn about the Ottoman Empire. It would have a better understanding of the Muslim religion. We'd have a better understanding of the Middle East. And yes, people would have a better understanding of the history of the Jews in Jerusalem. The Great War never truly ended. It simply left us a lot of homework. There you go. There's your ToddCast Time Machine history lesson of the week. I know we don't know the names as well. Doesn't seem like that history is as fun as watching a Netflix documentary about Hitler and his goons. But trust me, you'll understand the Middle East of today a lot better if you spend some time learning more about the fall of the Ottoman Empire.